Brandon Carlisle here with Tough Enough Movement. Today we got Mike Cazayoux. Is that right?
Oh,
I've heard it
you didn't
pronounced.
research how to say my name,
No.
man. I'm just
So
kidding.
this is the deal. I've heard it pronounced because I've listened to a whole bunch of episodes and I hear it pronounced different ways by different people and everything like that. And so I was like, and I practiced it on my way here. And now I went back to what the guys that I used to CrossFit with used to call you that. And
An old version.
Cazayoux, Michael
That's it.
Cazayoux.
Yeah, it's cashew.
That's it.
Yeah,
Okay.
I've had almost no one pronounces it correctly, and I've had so many nicknames about it. You got it though.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, a little bit now. We'll go into your background and everything like that. Of now you're running Soul Search Adventures, right? That's currently having like that. And before that, you did brute strength training. You did all that and ran it and sold it, and then you were a 2-time CrossFit Games champion. You did the Michael Caz podcast and a bunch of other things. But if we just want to start, I think we'll just go really quick of where you were born and raised and where you came up.
Yeah, I grew up in a town called New Roads, Louisiana, and it was 4,500 people. Very rural town. I grew up with a really big family on both sides. All of the holidays in my family were like 50, 60 people deep. And it was amazing. It was really amazing. I grew up playing outdoors constantly, playing sports and playing in the woods. And yeah, what else would you like to know, man?
So like then when you got into school and everything like that, you were big into sports. Were you good at school? Was it something you struggled in? Was it?
I was I was very good at school, and I don't know that that means I was necessarily that smart. I don't think I went, not, I don't think. Louisiana is typically dead last or in competition for last place in terms of education in this country. And on top of that, I was in a very tiny town. I don't think I was challenged that much. So even despite, what you know about me, going through addiction in my later years, I was able to maintain nearly a 4.0 GPA. But I hated school, man. I hated it. I grew up Catholic. I went to a Catholic school. We had to tuck in our clothes and wear the same uniforms and everything. And so I hated that aspect, like the strict part of it. I think I'm rebellious by nature, and I would be in any environment. But when I feel like an authority figure, even my wife now, is trying to control my behavior, it's always been hard for me. So I didn't like that aspect. I was so bored by the academics, and it was really just not the right place for me, but that was the best option.
So you went to a Catholic school. Did you grow up Catholic, or was that
Yep.
just the school you went?
Yeah,
Okay.
going to church twice a week, once at school, once with my family. And man, that's a whole rabbit hole we could go into in terms of my spiritual evolution. But the long story made short is I hated religion my whole life. And as soon as I left Louisiana and moved to Utah for a while, I called myself an atheist for a long time. And now I've come full circle where I really appreciate where I came from and the religion that has really shaped the values of my family and thus my own values. And so now I have a lot of curiosity about it. I don't go to church regularly or anything, or even call myself a Christian, but I'm deeply curious about the teachings in the Bible, and especially about this figure, Jesus. Like what better role model throughout history is there? Like maybe there's a handful that can compete with the level of compassion and speaking truth to power. And I'm kind of rambling, but that's kind of my journey with religion.
Yeah, I think religion, because it's a touchy subject for some people and everything like that. And for me,
oh, is it in Utah?
In Utah, right? But I just feel like it gives good morals to families and to people. Like the basic guidelines, like the commandments and everything like that are good things to live by and structure things. So then we'll just we'll go into then later on in school when you got into the addiction and everything like that. From what I've heard on the podcast that you've said, you said you started doing it to fit in, to feel like you fit in with people. Would you say that you did it because of low self esteem? Like you felt like you had to prove yourself, or did you feel like it was just the cool thing to do? I like for me, I know when I started drinking, like I wanted to fit in and everything like that, and I realized it's because my self esteem was low,
Mm.
and I didn't know if that translates to other people or if
Yeah, good question. I don't, it doesn't resonate with me that I had low self-esteem necessarily. I I grew up quite popular, and I think I had a relatively healthy self-esteem. But then I saw these guys that were, quote unquote, the bad kids in my class and in my, like, around my age, doing these other things, whether that be stealing or vandalism or drugs. And they were just doing these things, and they seemed to bond over those things. That was something that they did together. And so I noticed that's what was happening. And I just wanted to be like them. And I've always had a very high risk tolerance. And so I've never had any worry whatsoever about taking a new drug, because I never thought anything bad would happen to me. Like, if I get that other people die, but it'll never happen to me. Other people might get addicted. It will never happen to me. So, I just saw other people doing it, and I was like, okay, if that's what they're doing, I got to do it.
yeah.
And then,
Yeah, and I know that
before long, they really sunk their teeth into me,
yeah.
one after the other. The drugs did.
Yeah. And it feels like that's the path. And also, they say that you'll, the five people you hang around the most, that you'll take on their attributes and things like that and start doing more things like them and more things to fit in and everything like that. Did you feel that was also leading down that path or?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So then you come up to Utah and you go through rehab and everything like that. And during that time, is that when, because you talk about having a little bit of depression, was the depression about the things you've done about the past, or was it other things inside of you? Do you feel what brought that in?
Yeah, when I was still using, 16, 17 years old, I didn't know that I was depressed, but I was regularly thinking about killing myself. I wasn't I wasn't planning for it, but those thoughts were in my head quite often. And so that's pointing to depression likely.
Yeah.
And then I got off of drugs, and then all of a sudden I was like, oh shit, I have anxiety. I was so afraid of women, dude. It was insane. We were we were supposed to, when I got to rehab, we were all of the boys were planning for a talent show. And for the talent show, they were doing a dance to Another One Bites the Dust. And so a dance instructor would come in once a week, and we would all practice the dance. And I became deathly afraid of getting up on stage and doing this dance because all of the girls would see. I had never experienced anything like that in my life. Like, I grew up going to parties and dancing with girls, but then with no drugs, I don't know. It was new to me. I was quite anxious. And so you asked about depression. I was depressed. I think there was depression related to shame about what I had done, to speak to what you were asking about. And then I was depressed about this idea that I don't get to live the life of a normal teenage kid anymore. I'm going
Yeah.
to be doing this rehab thing for the next couple years. And then at best, I'm going to be sober, still not living like a normal person. And that was really, really hard for me for a year and a half. And yeah, medication helped, AA
Yeah.
helped, community helped. But yeah, it's funny. being on drugs was obviously like my life was obviously unmanageable and chaotic, and I was causing a lot of harm, but that really wasn't the hard part. The hard part was getting and staying sober and just dealing with the the harm I had caused other people, the shame that I felt about that, and just learning how to actually be me.
Yeah. And I think learning how to cope, because that's one of the things that I struggled with was getting sober was when you're feeling shitty, you're used to getting a substance and using that to feel better. Like and learning these other ways of coping are it's a learning curve of like what actually helps me. What do I need to do to get these feelings at bay and to make myself feel better about myself and then get that away.
Mm-hmm.
And you were saying that doing AA and everything like that. Was there anything else you did? Was that because you said you practiced meditation since a young age? Was that something that helped with that too, or was that kind of just something you do regularly all the time?
Yeah, I learned meditation in residential treatment, and I went through periods of doing it every day and then periods of not doing it a single time in 3 months. But there was something about it that just kept drawing me back. I just knew before I noticed any impact whatsoever, I just felt like it was one of the healthiest things that I could do for myself. Years later, I was reading, when I started, I was probably 18. When I was 24 or 25, I was just randomly opening pages in old journals. And at the time, when I was going through my journals, I was feeling depressed. I think I had moved back to Louisiana for a while, and I noticed something on multiple, maybe two or three different pages. I found entries that said something like, Michael, when you stop meditating, you become depressed. or like earlier on, it was like, I haven't been meditating for a while. I'm feeling depressed. And so I noticed this pattern. And yeah, all of that to say that's certainly been a huge tool for me. And what it's taught for me more than anything is like, you don't meditate to get good at meditating. You don't meditate to just still your mind for 20 minutes out of your day. You meditate so that in the other 23 hours and 40 minutes of your day, you know how to pop out of your thoughts, to become the watcher of your thoughts and your feelings. Michael Singer, the author of The Untethered Soul, calls this so that you can let go of your shit. This meaning making, story making machine that stresses us out, that's full of fear, that's just chaotic and is not us, but we identify as it almost all the time. So meditation has taught me and given me the ability to now, when I'm at my best, it's like a dozen, 2 dozen times per day. I remember my breath. I really feel my breath. I feel my feet hitting the floor. I notice myself stressed out about something my wife just said. And then there's a part of me that says, wait, that's not necessarily true. So that ability to just notice and watch experience, as far as I know, is at the core of a lot of the spiritual traditions. So meditation has been big for me. I did the whole 90 meetings in 90 days thing in AA. I was volunteering at a ton of AA meetings. I probably sponsored 3-4 dozen people over, I think, 5 years. I was so gung ho in the recovery community. I was going to therapy, and one of the biggest was finding CrossFit. I found it before, after I got out of treatment. I started it, really loved it. Then I had a real bad relapse that didn't last long, and then I found it again 6 months sober, and it was great for me for two main reasons. One, I think especially for men, it's essential to have purpose. And my only purpose, well, shit, I didn't have much purpose. I was just going to AA meetings and I was going to school, and those did not feel very purposeful. But then I started doing this CrossFit thing, and there were all of these movements and different exercises that I wanted to get better at. And then I found out there was a way to compete in it. And on one level, you can say, well, it's kind of like a shallow purpose. But for me at the time, it made me excited to get up in the morning. It made me feel like I had a direction in my life that other things could sort of orient themselves around. So the one thing that was great was a purpose outside of just stay sober. And the second was that it's such a healthy community of people that are just trying to better themselves. And AA meetings and 12-step meetings are full of that. But the analogy that I've always, or maybe metaphor I've always said about AA is often it feels like it's a room full of people in a hole that they've dug, just trying to climb up out of the hole and get back to zero. And in my experience, there were very few people that I was encountering that were living inspiring lives. They were all just trying to climb out of rock bottom kind of thing, or stay out of rock bottom. AA meetings were full of, people that were working jobs and had families and loved a lot of parts of their lives. And I think it was really healthy for me to be around a lot of positive people,
Yeah. And people who had these bigger drives and goals of other than just staying sober and staying away from that being the main goal. It's like I have these other ambitions and more growth in different ways like that. I could see that. And so then when you get into CrossFit.
And to be clear, AA saved my life. When I relapsed, AA absolutely saved my life. So I'm so grateful for it. And it's like, it's a tool. It's not the only way and the only thing one should do for their entire recovery or their entire life.
Yeah. It's something to go through and get that process and learn how to get out of that and stay out of it kind of thing.
Yeah. And for some people, I think it really is like, it's great if they want to continue going for their entire life and taking other people through the steps. I think that's wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah. And so then when you got into CrossFit, what do you think gave you that drive though of like, because like I did CrossFit for a while and everything like that, and I loved competing and doing that, but to have the drive to get to the level you got to be a 2 times games champion, like how that's an internal thing that a lot of people don't have. Like, I'm going to do this and follow all the steps of nutrition and following the programming and sticking to it. Do you think there was something that is it just internally you have that drive all the time, or was it?
Well, I grew up again in that really small town. The short answer is I don't know. I don't know. But if I'm trying, I've never been asked that question. So I'm trying to think why it might be. So I grew up in this super small town and went to a school where if I would have graduated from that high school, it would have been 70 people, but I left when I was 17. So I was able to play every sport and start at every sport. I was always playing at least one sport all year long. And because it's such a small town, like I was one of the best at everything. And I'm a little bit naturally gifted. I don't think I'm an incredible athlete, but a little bit naturally gifted. And so I excelled at everything. And I think I developed this belief, and especially when I was young, I developed this belief that I should always be the best or one of the best. And that really bit me in the ass in I think a lot of ways in life, but it also served me in some ways. It gave me this sense of confidence that I could do anything, and with enough effort, I could become really good at it. Where it's bit me in the ass is at times when I wouldn't immediately be good at something, I would just give up. So when I started doing CrossFit, at first I didn't even know there was a competitive like league. I didn't know about the CrossFit Games or anything. I just saw this board in the front of class, and I wanted to beat the 50-year-old woman that beat me the first day that I went in there. And then over time, I just wanted to beat this guy named Rob at the gym, who was always first. And I think that I have a lot of the qualities that are that made me pick CrossFit up really quickly. I'm the right size, height, and weight. I'm a generalist. I have really great endurance. Like I always won conditioning stuff in all of the sports. I beat all of the black guys that were way faster than me at conditioning because I had lungs and I just didn't quit. And so I just had these things that I think were really suited to CrossFit. And then I was surrounded by people that were much better athletes than me, that, you know, my future teammates on Hacks Pack. And yeah, I think it was a recipe for me to just really, really go all out. You know, this belief that I can be great if I put in enough effort, being surrounded by people that have been high level collegiate athletes that know what it looks like to really sort of leave no stone unturned, to like take the training seriously, the recovery, the diet, everything. Like all of my teammates had been doing this for 4 to 8 years in their competitive lives. And so I just watched how they behaved and I just did what they did. And man, I'm deeply grateful for that experience. You know, obviously it was so fun and validating to work really hard and win. But what I'm equally, if not more, grateful for is it truly taught me how to work hard and how to work really hard without knowing what the outcome will be. You know, I told you I grew up with things were a little bit easy growing up. And when I started college, I just straight up didn't know how to work hard. And I was repulsed by the idea of it. And this is really how I learned it. And a big part of it was, again, just being surrounded by other people working hard. You mentioned something. Yeah. You mentioned the trope that everyone's heard. We are the 5 people that we spend the most time with. And I think this is really interesting. There's a guy named Rene Girard. He's I guess you would call him a philosopher. He developed this theory called mimetic theory. And essentially he said that human beings are imitative creatures. And I think that's in the definition of human beings, or Homo sapiens, that we imitate each other. And so the idea is we want what each other wants. And it's almost like that. We want what each other wants, but really what we want is I said it correctly. We want what other people want. So we observe what other people value and what they're striving for in their life. And then we adopt those desires. So the distinction I was trying to get at first is we don't want what they have, we want what they want. So whatever other people around us are striving for is what we end up desiring. I don't know how I got on that. Oh yeah, just having teammates. Yeah, just surround yourself with people that want what you want to want.
Yeah. Yeah. And then you do all that and you win the games and everything like that. You have your injury and you get into coaching. Was that a way just to kind of stay into the sport? Like or did you start before your back injury or after the surgery? Started after? After. Was that a way to kind of keep with the program or was it to help people? What was the main idea of opening and running that?
Yeah, I was very involved in the CrossFit industry, and while I was still competing, I became a strength and conditioning coach. So it just felt like a natural progression. And actually, the way that Brute started is it wasn't even something I wanted to do. My friend at the time, Matt Bruce, a guy that got me a job at LSU as a strength and conditioning coach, um, he was one of the best weightlifters in the last um, 20 years in America.
Yeah.
He yeah, he got me this job, and so I said, "Hey Matt, as a what like basically what can I do in return for you for doing me this huge favor? I'm so grateful." And he said, "Well, I know that you've been doing some online programming in Utah. Why don't we team up and I'll write the weightlifting portion and you write the rest of the program?" So him and I did that for about 6 months. And then I decided I didn't want to be a strength and conditioning coach. And I was going to take an opportunity to buy a gym from my teammate, Tommy Hackenbrook. And Tommy knew what Matt and I were up to with the programming. And he said, to sweeten the deal, why don't we use the Ute CrossFit name, which is the name of Tommy's gym and was the name of our CrossFit team. Why don't we use the name of the gym to kind of make this a bigger thing, this programming thing? And so
Yeah.
we called it Brute Strength. And so it was me, Matt, and Tommy that called it, that started it.
Okay. And then that's about the time you get married and then you start going down the family life, right? Heading into Brute and everything like that. That's
Yeah, I think 6 months later. That's right.
6 months later. Okay. So then you get done with that, you do a bunch of businesses and everything like that, and then you get into the married life, and now you're doing the soul searching adventures, right?
Mhm.
What was the inspiration behind that, and like what is that process like? What are you doing with all that now?
Well, ever since my first rehab experience, yeah, I fell in love with psychology and the idea that you can make some tweaks in the way that you think and the way that you speak to other people, and it can completely change your perception of life. I went from thinking about killing myself and addicted to drugs to over a few years feeling a lot of joy and peace and excitement and having people in my life that really cared about me and really supported me and really challenged me. And I loved that process, and my life became so good that I started feeling this natural desire to give back. And so I've always, ever since 18 years old, I've been trying to find my way to help other people through hard times, help them feel and express their emotions, help them have better relationships, all of the things that have been instrumental in me healing and then learning to love my life. And I tried a bunch of different things over the years, from thinking I was going to be a social worker to a psychologist to trying a bunch of different sort of like online life coaching type things, either with our employees or with one-on-one clients. And none of it really felt fully authentic and exciting to me. And I didn't feel that good at any of those either. Like I was having that big of an impact on anyone. And then a few years ago, I had this idea to essentially I'll give a little bit of context. My very first rehab was a wilderness therapy program in St. George, Utah, outside of St. George, Utah. I lived in the desert for 9 weeks, and that was the very beginning of my recovery journey. And so fast forward 8, maybe, I don't know, 10, 12 years from that point, I had the idea to do a trip like that for healthy adults. So now I take usually high achieving men that are unsatisfied in their lives, and we go on these epic outdoor trips and do deep introspection. And we look at the areas of their relationship with their self, their relationship with others, and their work.
So when you had that process of you wanted to help, and then these were the ideas you had, was there a little bit of wanting to do that for yourself too, or was it mainly like, was it this is something I feel like I'm built for, or was it this might help me too in a certain way, or like what was the whole drive to just make that and keep it going?
Hmm. Yeah, I think all of us have an innate desire to help other people. Like at the core, we want to be helpful to other people. I think that's hardwired in our DNA. So this, yeah, I think essentially I felt like I've gone through, I've done a lot of work in this area. I've been in the field and in the training grounds in the world of psychology and behavior change and spirituality for a long time. And even when I was 18, I had already been in AA meetings for 3 or 4 years and privy to a lot of really deep, intimate discussions. So I've just had this feeling like I have a lot of experience in this world, you know? And I once I recovered, I discovered that I have a lot of emotional intelligence. I'm very tuned in to what other people are feeling, if they're triggered or not, what they're capable of hearing, where their attention is. And so, yeah, it's been a bit of, I just want to help other people. And I feel like I have some built and natural skills in this. And I guess lastly, what else is in it for me is I think the lifestyle of someone leading trips and doing coaching is more flexible than someone working a 9 to 5, and that's always been appealing to me as well.
Sense. What do you think you would say, like when somebody comes on one of those trips, what's your main goal or focus? Is it just to get them to work on things about themselves or to get a better idea of things around them, or is there a main goal to it, or is it just kind of a whole bunch of things all at once?
Yeah, the issues that men are facing, there are a handful of common ones that almost all men are facing, and that's what guys usually come on these trips to work on. They want deeper relationships with other men. They want a better marriage. They want more purpose and direction in their career. And then there's this common one that it goes like, on paper, everything in my life looks perfect. These are like high achieving men with great careers. They've got a family and friends around them, but they're discontent. And so they're like, what the fuck? What is this about? So those are kind of like the main four things. And my hope for people, and what usually, well, almost without fail, what happens is um, a lot of people think that there's some guru out there, some book that has the right answers for their problems. And I've gotten the most transformation and discussion.
Looks like I lost you there.
Yeah. All
Yeah, if it happens again, we'll go straight to audio.
right, cool.
So
So yeah, those are the four things that people typically come for. And every single one of them leaves with the deepest sense of inner peace and groundedness that they've ever had. They feel like these guys that they only met 5 days ago are like brothers, and they have clarity and direction in their life. And that doesn't mean that they know exactly that they should quit the job that they hate and what job they should go and, or like what business they should go and create or what job they want. But it's something much deeper than that. It's like a direction that is underneath and more powerful than any specific like next action step. And I do invite people to get really clear and precise about what action they're committed to taking after the trips. But it's I think I got cut off when I was talking about this earlier. One of my hopes is that people connect with their own inner guru on these trips.
okay.
Their own inner teacher, the part of themselves that has answers to the questions that they seek. And my belief is that there's this deep wisdom that resides in all of us, and it's just always clouded by all of the other stuff in our lives, our worries and responsibilities and other people's thoughts and advice for us. And one of the reasons that I do these trips out in nature is that when we put our phones away and we cut ourselves off from all of the inputs, the snow globe of our minds can settle, and what is left is that deep wisdom. It's clarity, it's insight, it's things like that. All of those things are in us all the time if we have the patience just to sit and be still.
You feel it's a better way? Because like I think that a lot of people think somebody's just going to tell me what to do. They're going to tell me how to fix this. They're going to tell me if I read enough or if I listen to enough of this stuff, they're going to tell me exactly what to do. Do you feel that when you take them on these, it's where they get that clarity for themselves? It's like, no, I know what I need to do. Like I know these steps, and not exactly what I need to do, but I know where I want to go, and I get that guided instead of somebody telling you. Because a lot of times when somebody tells you something, sometimes you'll listen, sometimes you won't. But I don't think it sinks in fully. You get a little more passion with it if it comes from yourself and you learn it and go, oh, that's what I need to do, not what I listen to, not what it's when you figure that out.
Yeah, you hit the nail on the head, man. And one thing that you're pointing at is when you provide that answer for yourself, when you find your own solution, your motivation is on another level compared to if I give you a piece of advice.
Yeah.
So another way to put this is like when you go out into nature for long enough, you can feel these really subtle sensations. Some might call it intuition, some might call it insight. You can notice these really subtle sensations that are giving you information about what to do in your life. You know, if for instance you're in a job that you hate, in your everyday life, it can be quite easy to deceive yourself into thinking that everything's okay. Like you can put up with it for another 5 to 10 years until you retire. But if you go out into nature, or if you're just in the right environment, if you're still enough, you may notice that you're actually deeply unhappy, and you may feel rage against your set of circumstances that you've just been hiding from for years. And so you don't need me to tell you what you feel in your body related to your work, right? You can feel it. And that's a powerful thing. That's a really powerful thing.
Well, I can definitely see that. And one thing from listening to things and listening to your story, it feels like you fully immerse yourself into what you're doing throughout your life. It's kind of like when you struggle with addiction, stuff like that, like you were in that, you were doing that lifestyle. When you got into CrossFit, you were that was your life. And then when you got into coaching, and then now with this, it seems like, do you feel like that's accurate, or is there a reason for that? Do you feel like it's all or nothing, or do you feel like it's just that drive of when you start doing something, you fully engage in it?
Hmm. That's a really cool reflection to hear from you, because I tend to think of myself as a generalist, like someone that just does a lot of different things, and quite often I get down about that. You know, I look at the I don't know, the person that figures out he wants to play guitar and that's all he does from 8 until he's 30 and he becomes a rock star. I'm like, I want to be like that guy. So it's really cool to hear that you see me that way. And I suppose I've done that a number of times, like get really obsessed with something. I think it's like I think it is not natural to me, but I know that immersion is how you get the most out of something, or you get the best at something. So in recovery, it's like if I really like my life is on the line, if I really want to save my life and love my life at some point, this has got to be the main thing. And when things started to really take off with CrossFit, I was very intentional about like if I want to contribute to this team to be the best in the world at this thing, then I've got to just go all in. And yeah, that's obviously the case. Like going all in is the way that you get the best at a thing. And so I'm constantly searching for what is it that I want in my life and trying to be aware of the things that like my conditioning and what I think I should want, and like get clear about what I actually want. And then what are the skills that I need to get me there? And then I try to obsess over the skills that will get me to the places I want to go. And it doesn't always work, but occasionally it does. But
I think some people,
I get distracted like everyone else.
yeah. And I was just gonna say that I think that some people get halfway in. You're like, I want to do this, but they're cautious and they're like halfway in, but they don't fully commit. So I guess when I was saying immersion, I was going to say more like that. You commit to it, and then you find those skills, you find the things you need, and try to better at it. Because I was going to say, because I obviously don't know you, so I didn't know if you felt like you immersed like that, and now you're saying that you like to be a generalist and you feel like you're around doing a whole bunch of things. But I just wanted to kind of have a little bit of clarification to see how you felt towards that. But
yeah, man. Okay, this has been one of the biggest insights I think of my entire life. So I told you about this part of me that was overly confident at one point in my life, and I thought I should always be good at everything. And if I wasn't, then that thing just wasn't for me. Then I read the book Growth Mindset, or maybe it's just called Mindset, by Carol Dweck. Really, really popular book. The main point of that book that got lodged deeply in me is that I think I've already said it on this podcast. With enough effort, any of us can get really good at anything. No one's born artistic. No one's born like good at math. We get good at the things that we put effort into and that we practice at. And so now I truly have this belief that if I want to get better at something, then why wouldn't I immerse myself in it? Right? Like I know I can get better at it. All of my heroes in music, in entrepreneurship, athletes, they sucked at the beginning. And now I've been privileged to talk to a lot of really successful people in different areas. All of them, they sucked. They felt self-doubt. They felt like imposters. They hit road bumps. Every single one of them, over and over and over, had those same feelings and experiences as the rest of us when they were starting something new. And so I really know that now. And so when I feel self-doubt or I feel like I suck at it, now I don't let it cause me to quit. I just say, oh, it's supposed to be like this right now.
And I feel like actually that if you're not as good at it in the beginning, that if you dedicate to it, that you're actually going to be better. Because if you look at, say, really skilled athletes, like some players in the NFL or some players in the NBA that are just naturally gifted athletes, and you compare them to a player who had the heart and passion and had to work to build all that, I'm going to take that player over the guy that just has the natural skill, because they have that passion to it. They have that drive. They have that want to get better, and they know how to grow and how to better themselves and how to see their weaknesses, rather than the talented guy that just kind of, I can just do this. Like they don't have that drive.
Yeah, I totally agree, man. The natural talented ones aren't as resilient because they haven't had to be.
Yeah. Yeah. And then with that too, you were saying how relationships is one thing that you work on. I know that's one thing you wanted to kind of hit on. Is it just relationships with people, or is it spouse relationships? What are your insights towards relationships and bettering those?
Well, I believe that, yeah, there's this quote that goes, your network is your net worth. And that's kind of in the field of success, if you will, the realm of succeeding in life. But I think it relates to to life in general. Like the quality of your relationships is the quality of your life. And I didn't make that up. Someone else said that, but I really do believe that. And I think most people know that on some level, but because our family members, our spouse, our kids, our friends, because they're so close to us, they're so easy to take for granted. We assume they will always be there. And so we don't feel the same level of motivation to pour our energy into them.
Yeah.
Right? If we realize, or if we were present to the fact that they will all die one day, we will lose all of them one day, we might treat them differently now. You know, my dog, for instance, he's been having some issues with he like not eating and peeing when he used to not pee, like in the room, and vomiting and stuff. And turns out he may have some issues with his kidneys. All of a sudden, I'm thinking about, oh wow, like worst case scenario, what if he dies soon? And I was just flooded with these feelings of gratitude, and I'm paying closer attention to him. And the fact is, that's going to happen at some point. And we're not going to get a letter in the mail that says, hey, your wife's going to die in 5 years. And then we'll be like, okay, now I'm finally going to be the type of husband that I want to be. We never know when people are going to die, but they're going to die one day. And so I think the best that we can do is act as if we know that, right? Act as if we realize and we're present to the fact that they're going to die. We're going to lose our most precious loved ones. And I have lots I could say about that, but about relationships in general. But I think I think one just very healthy practice to be in as any human is to regularly meditate on or just contemplate our own death, or the fact that everyone around us, we will lose them at one point.
Having that thought of, not only have how they feel about you, but how you feel towards them when that happens. I feel like you have to have both sides of it. It's like, if you feel like, oh, well, I feel this way about them, but how do they feel about me? But you don't know, then you might have some regrets towards those things. And so being able to detach and look at it from both sides, I feel like is that a good analysis? You think that you'd have to notice both sides of it in any relationship?
Well, I just encourage, like what I do is I will think of a family member dying, my kids passing away early. And this is not just something I made up. This has got roots in Christianity and Stoicism, etc. But it's sort of a prompt for me to think about those relationships and how I could be better in them. Sometimes it's just pay more attention. Sometimes it's maybe I'm curious about how they think of me, what they think about something I did. I think that's sort of what you were getting at. Sometimes it's there's a tension in our relationship and I need to bring that up. So I use it as a way to observe how that relationship is going and how I can show up better. And I do have to run, Brandon.
Okay. Well, then, if you just want to tell people where they can find you, and then we'll wrap this up. And
awesome, man. Yeah. If you're interested in the trips that I spoke about, you can go to soulsearchingadventures.com. And if you just want to get it, if you want to hear more from me, go to Michael Caz. That's MichaelCaz.com. And there you can subscribe to my newsletter. I post about once a month, and there are links to my social media accounts on there. And that would be the best place to do that. And yeah, Brandon, I just want to say thank you for inviting me on here and for this awesome conversation. I really appreciate it.
And no, thank you for coming on. I really appreciate it. And it was, yeah, I was looking forward to this one a lot. So thanks for taking the time and coming on, and have a good one. And hopefully you have a lot more success with your business and helping people. So,
Thank you, brother.
okay, we'll see you.